let me ask sort of a critical question of, if you're wrong about your statements about Bitcoin, you find out years from now that you were wrong, what would that look like? What would be the things that make you realize you were wrong? Likely ideas or crazy out there ideas? Do you think about this kind of stuff?
All the time.
Because you speak very confidently about Bitcoin. And one of the things, let me put it this way, I think certainty, I feel like that's like a stoic statement. Certainty leads to ruin, something like that. Like certainty, I think, is an antithesis to progress often. And especially in your writing, but this is true for the Bitcoin community, there's a certainty about the Bitcoin. And that makes me very skeptical, no matter how good the ideas are. Whenever things are good, this might be the Russian in me, I think like, what are the ways this is going to go wrong? So what do you think are the ways this might go wrong, or you're wrong in your conception of what Bitcoin is?
Yeah, so science evolves via negativa, meaning that we're not proving hypotheses, and that's what becomes the body of science. Science is whatever is left over as we disprove hypotheses, right? Whatever we can empirically, through experimentation, disprove gets discarded, and whatever remains, whatever theory remains that hasn't been disproven, is science, effectively. This process is similar to market actors zeroing in on a store value, right? They're experimenting with different forms of storing wealth across time. Some do better than others, and eventually everyone ends up on the one that is best. That's what gold was. In terms of understanding Bitcoin, I look at it as a similar approach. And that is the main question I'm asking myself is, how do you stop this thing? How do you turn it off? How do you end it? If you're a nation state, particularly, who has the most to lose in this transition, what is the attack vector by which they neutralize Bitcoin? I mean, that is the $250 trillion question. Mm-hmm. And, I've spent 5 years thinking about this thing very deeply. I've read everything on monetary history I can get my hands on. The general thought of how it is stopped, and this is the snag point that a lot of people get to in their explorations down the rabbit hole, is they just say the government will never allow it. And that becomes kind of their bottom. It's like, all right, Bitcoin's interesting, it's superior money, blah, 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 but the government will never allow it. And they say,
was Ray Dalio, did he say that?
Dalio was currently stuck there, yeah.
So Ray Dalio said that Bitcoin seems to be too promising.
Yeah.
If it is in fact as promising as it looks, governments are going to, I don't forget what the exact quote is, but not allow it, ban it.
Yeah.
Governments will ban it. So how do you get Ray Dalio unstuck from your perspective?
Well,
and how do you get unstuck from that idea that how do you prevent governments from stopping a thing that threatens centralized power?
Well, Bitcoin is an idea. So governments that are really good at fighting centralized threats to their power, right? Whether that's a currency counterfeiter or a competing nation state or a business they don't like or an individual they don't like, they can kill them, they can throw them in jail, they can use any number of coercive or violent tactics to suppress it. But how do you point a gun at an idea? How do you coerce an idea? And that's, there is some anecdotal history here where there's the PGP case, which in the United States, the court was trying to classify it as munitions when we were shipping this pretty good privacy software overseas. Government wanted to classify it as munitions and restrict that exportation. And this was a circuit court case precedent when the PGP attorneys actually printed out the source code on paper and presented it as evidence in the court. All of a sudden it became protected under freedom of speech, and that it's just code is speech, code is language, and therefore, at least in the United States, it's protected under the First Amendment. I think a government ban would be largely unenforceable, frankly, on Bitcoin. Being that it's pure information, if you suppress market actors from using it in one jurisdiction, you're just creating incentives for them to go elsewhere. And you're actually increasing the incentives for other jurisdictions to be favorable towards it, because then they get to benefit from the tax revenue and the businesses and the innovation that's occurring in and around Bitcoin as a result.
So you don't think if a particular central bank, like in Europe or United States, bans it, not maybe using those terms, but in some kind of way, you think that provides a really strong incentive for the other big players to enable it?
That's right. And that they're more likely, by the way, and governments know this, by the way, too. The other thing that causes a government to shoot itself in the foot is that if they ban something, they draw a lot of attention to it.
Yeah.
People are smart. I mean, people ask why. Why would a government ban it? Why can't I use this? So that's kind of typically be the last arrow in their quiver.